There is a big student visa scandal in the news. Smugglers from mostly India were using 260 different colleges in Canada for $70,000 per student to bring students between Canada to the States directly. More than 800 educational agents or study abroad agents have been involved. Can you believe this is real? No wonder that Canada is now making the rules for education abroad stricter. But do you think all the nationalities and all the study abroad students should suffer from what one nation is doing?
I'm gonna blow your mind. I had a friend of mine call me and he said, I figured out a scam and I see how it now works. His wife works at a jewelry store and there they hire Indian security guards, only Indian. And she gets to know them, obviously, because you're working with them every single day full time. But they're here on a student visa. The student visa allows you to only work a maximum of 20 or maximum of 25 hours a week. You know what? I'm just going to fact check myself. It's 24 hours per week. That's the maximum they can do. Do you guys remember when 50,000 first year students just didn't show up to school? Well, they weren't here to become students. And a perfect example is what I'm going to explain to you. What they do is when they find a full-time job, but since they're a student, they're only allowed to work 24 hours a week. Once they hit that threshold, they get paid in cash. They get paid under the table and they accept below minimum wage. So there's a duality effect of two people scamming the system. There's the person who said that there's a student visa, and then there's the employer. And apparently that's what these security guards are doing. When you multiply that across a bunch of different industries, it could be trucking, it could be Tim Hortons, it could be wherever, that's the scam. If you're wondering why your friends, your family, why they can't get jobs, when people come in under the student visa and they're not showing up for school, there's actually existing incentive in place for employers to hire that person knowing that they need a full-time job and they're going to pay them underneath the table, but it's going to be less than minimum wage. That's the trick. That's the scam. And I thought I had heard everything, but this is the first time. My mind was blown when I heard this, but it makes sense. The employer and the employee are both scamming the system.
All right, family, welcome back to yet another episode. I hope you are having a good time with family and friends. If you are celebrating Christmas, and if you are, Merry Christmas in advance. So guys, there is a very alarming rise of student visas scam in Canada. So yes, basically what is literally happening. Some immigrants are accessing Canada using the student visa because this is a visa that they get easily. But apparently, their intentions is not going in Canada to study using the student study visa. Majority of them ends up in Canada to work and live and settle and do their things in Canada. And for the genuine ones, the genuine immigrants who needs these student visas, they also get scammed. How? They know very well that these students are in need of these visas. They apply for these visas and they send them, the agents, they send them at a university in Canada that does not exist. And Canadians are raising concerns about these frauds. Many immigrants are in Canada using or through the student's visa. But if you do a proper background check, well, majority of them, they don't end up in classes. There are also statistics that they are a no-show in classes. About 50,000 students who entered Canada using the study visa, they are a no-show. And Canadians are literally raising concerns about this. In this video, that is exactly what Canadians will be talking about. Let's watch what they had to say, then we shall be sharing our opinions at the end.
The colleges are a scam?
The colleges right now, I would say they are scam, because when I applied over here in Canada, right, I was back home, I didn't saw the university, I didn't know anything about that. They said the name of the university was Algoma University, so I was like, okay, it's a university, it would be a huge college, the infrastructure would be good, the faculty over there would be much more educated, and I would get an opportunity to learn better. But once I came here, first day at my college, I went over there, it was in the Brampton downtown. I went over there were just 3 or 4 rooms in a building, and they were calling it a university.
It was just a building with 3 rooms?
With just 3 rooms at that time, and right now they have bought so many rooms and around just by enrolling international students. Their whole business is running on the international students.
Was there any white Canadians in your class?
No one. All international students. Right. No Canadian over there, and I was shocked to see that. I was like, what kind of a university is this?
So this news is all over the social media since yesterday that 700 international Indian students are being deported from Canada. Reason being, they submitted fake documentation, they submitted fake offer letters from Humber College at the time of their study visa applications. They completed their Canadian work experience from Canada, and when they applied for their PR applications at the time of background checks, IRCC came to know that they submitted fake documents at the time of study visa applications. So now the thing is, all the efforts, all the time, all the money has been wasted. This is my request to all international students to please be very careful, beware of the fact that this is your application, this is your life. And when things like this happen, you have to face the consequences. So now the consequence is in front of everybody. This is my request to all international students to please be very careful while you choose your immigration representative, and you should know what is happening in your application, may it be any type of application. This is very, very disappointing and, heartbreaking for everybody, for other international students as well, because, other people also suffer when these kind of things happen. So be very careful when you choose your representative and when you file your application with IRCC. I hope this information helps. Take care.
So, Canada's Immigration Department has uncovered over 10,000 fraudulent student acceptance letters just in this year. And 80% of those are linked to Indian students. If you're Canadian, you're probably not surprised by that. And it's not because we're racist, you just have to look around your environment and observe. And this represents a significant increase of 30% compared to last year. And concerns are growing with some Canadian universities and colleges who are supposedly not authenticating their acceptance letters. If you're in a Canadian university right now, you totally know what I mean. People are saying that they have individuals in their class who can't even speak English in an English-speaking institution. I'm fed up just like everybody else because right now, as an actual Canadian citizen, I'm being treated worse than illegal immigrants coming into Canada.
I tried warning you all last year. I knew this was going to be a problem. I knew this was a scam. I knew we had a massive loophole. And today, the IRCC just said as many as 47,000 students may now be in Canada illegally. They're potentially non-compliant, meaning they're not attending classes as required by the terms of their visa. It was a scam. They came to the country saying we're going to be a student because that was an easy entry for them to get in, to take Canadian jobs, and be one of the reasons we now have one of the largest youth unemployments in decades. And I take it back. It was almost a year ago when this came out. 50,000 students in Canada reported as no-shows. They didn't show up on the first day of school. It was as much of a problem then as it is now. And the Liberal Party is taking no action whatsoever on it. It seems like an important time to bring it up. Did you know that in the US, they have limits of how much of a percentage each country gets on immigration? So there's no greater weight of 50% or 60% given to any individual country for their visas. There are exceptions outside of this. Reasonable ones, like if I'm an American citizen and I want to bring someone over who's maybe seeking refuge or an asylum seeker, there are limits that can be done. And even then, there's limits placed on those too. Canada has an open border policy. An open border policy means there is no border. There's no limit. In fact, in 2023, they allowed someone from the UK to enter Canada despite them being on a sex offender list because they had an inappropriate, incestuous, not even going to call it a relationship. It was a violation of his own niece. He got a visa. No border, no security, but what you get instead is the problems and the taxes. You get the bill. Ridiculous.
Canada is now rejecting most Indian study permit applications due to fraud. And this is coming at the same time that Ottawa is seeking mass visa cancellation powers to deter fraud from India and Bangladesh. So about 74% of Indian applications for permits to study in Canada in August were rejected. This is way up from the 32% that we saw in August of 2023. For comparison, in the same month, only 24% of Chinese study permits were rejected. And where we are catching the fraud is a lot of people using fake letters of acceptance from universities. And simultaneously, the government is looking at mass visa cancellations. And this has raised concerns with over 300 civil liberty associations. And here's the thing, I don't like the framing of this. I don't like the idea that the government could have a mass deportation machine. And so this is where we have to start having those hard conversations, because I think that a lot of Canadians would agree that we should be cutting down on fraud and that deporting people who are here when they're not supposed to be, people who are here abusing the temporary foreign worker system or abusing their status as international students, having those people deported makes sense, and there is nothing inherently wrong with that. Where it becomes an issue is when it starts to become A, about race, and B, when we start to become aggressive in our pursuit of those deportations and of those fraudulent claims. And we also have to be concerned about the government doing something in an illegal fashion that would then get shot down by the Supreme Court. I've talked about this time and time again. One of the major failings of Stephen Harper when it came to his criminal reforms was that a lot of the stuff that he tried to push through was very obviously illegal. So when it got overturned, it actually made it harder for us to police. And if Carney and the Liberals overstep their legal boundaries here, what issues might we face in the future? So let's have these difficult conversations because we really need to. But let's be mindful not to stir up hate or fear because most people just want to come here for a better life.
I honestly think I just uncovered the biggest scam happening in Canada, and it has to do with student visas. What students are doing is they're using the student pathway to get into the country. They're here to work. They're here to live. They had no intention of ever being a student. That is why you had 50,000 students that didn't show up on their first day of school. So what they do is they get a job. It's a full-time job, but what they do on the employer side is they actually pay them under the table. They give them cash and they pay them below minimum wage. So if they're supposed to be earning $30 an hour, let's say, they will pay them $30 an hour up until a certain point, until they reach the 24 hours. In Canada, if you're a student on a student visa, you can't work more than 24 hours in this country. But they are. They're working full time. And that's why Canadians can't find themselves a job. It's because it's being taken by these international students who are actually working full time. But what the employer does is they benefit off that. They're a part of this scam. They know they're going to have someone that they can pay below minimum wage. They'll pay them cash because these immigrants, they need to work. They need to work full time. And so they're going to take that money and they're going to work below minimum wage. So they have a basically full-time person at part-time prices. The other thing that someone just put me onto of what they do is the employers will say this person worked 24 hours at $30 an hour, but that's not their wage. In fact, they end up working 48 hours in a week, double those hours, and so really their wage ends up being $15 an hour or whatever minimum wage is, or just beneath it. It's all a scam. Anyone who's here on a student visa that did not show up for the first day of school needs to be deported. Plain and simple, it's all a fraud. And with the tariff wars happening right now, with layoffs happening, with the economy going down the drain, we don't need over 4 million temporary workers in the country, and particularly those who are looking to scam our system and scam us out of good paying jobs.
What specific countries has IRCC identified frauds from? Is there a predominant country?
India is one of the top countries.
You talked about study permits that have been withdrawn. How many study permits have been withdrawn because of criminal activities over the past 4 years?
Thank you. Well, we could provide the total number that have been withdrawn. If a client is withdrawing their application, we would not know for what reason they're choosing to withdraw.
So you don't track this?
We would be tracking if we were looking at refusing for any concerns related to criminality.
Okay, so how many have been withdrawn or refused due to criminality in the last 4 years?
We don't have that statistic
Why?
with us today.
Okay, can you table that with committee? Yes, thank you. What specific countries has IRCC identified frauds from? Is there a predominant country?
Thank you for the question. So with regards to fraud, we, and it depends on the different streams. So the one I can speak to where we did
I just want to know a country. I don't have a lot of time.
India is one of the top countries where we identify fraud.
You also said that 8% of students in your testimony are non-compliant and have disappeared in Canada with study permits. That works out to, by my math, about 79,000 based on data from end of year 2004. Do you know where these people are?
So I'd like to clarify that I mentioned 8% of the students that we asked for compliance information from were potentially non-compliant. So in terms of the total number of students that we did ask for compliance, that results in potentially 47,175. We have not yet determined whether or not they are fully non-compliant.
Okay.
These are initial results that the institutions provide to us.
Could you find them if they are compliant?
Any foreign national in Canada would be under the purview of the Canada Border Services Agency,
Okay.
so they have an inland investigation
So how do you
team.
know if your measures are effective?
We are constantly collecting that data. So as I mentioned,
So you do share data with CBSA?
we do share data with CBSA.
Okay,
yes.
but you don't know where they are, if they're compliant?
So if they are compliant,
Or
they
not
would be
compliant.
registered in the post-secondary institution.
Okay, I've heard enough. How many right now are fully non-compliant?
I don't have that number.
Can you provide that with committee?
That would be a challenging number because
So how do you, if you don't know how many are non-compliant, how can you track them and remove them?
So the 8% are potentially non-compliant, meaning that the university or the post-secondary institution, the DLI, has reported back that they don't have information that these individuals.
So apparently, according to the reports you've just seen, these are reports from Canadians, from major news outlets, and some analysis. They show that majority of students that enter Canada through the study visa are a no-show in schools. Majority of them, when they enter Canada, they disappear. And unfortunately, employers in Canada, they are hiring them. They don't even want to care if they entered Canada using a student visa or not. But, and some of them, they totally disappear, according to the last clip you've just seen. And this is raising concerns in Canada. See, Canadians are like, so it means that anyone can enter Canada without even a proper background check. Canada is offering these visas without even considering to know or maybe make a follow-up to know if these students are attending classes or no. So you mean foreigners are entering Canada using the study visa and that's just it? Even if they are not studying, they are entering Canada as students and end up working. You know, these are just some of the concerns. And what I always say in this channel is, you know, if you look at those statistics and those reports, it is alleged that majority of these scams and these frauds are from India. But if you dare talk about that, you will see even in the comments, people will start saying that Canadians don't love Indians. Canadians are against Indian. They hate towards Indian. They have Indian fatigue and all the rest things. If you try call them out, they will say you are a racist in short. But if 1 or 2 or 3 Canadians was to complain, we could have just said, yes, they hate these people. But now every Canadian is talking about the same issue. It means it's a crisis. This students' visa fraud is literally happening on the face of the Canadians, and the Canadians are the ones that are living and seeing that this person X, Y, Z is in Canada using a study visa. And apparently he is not even a student. He is working. He has a restaurant. They have hotels. They have Uber. You know, they have every possible asset that a student visa does not require you to have. You see, they are making money. They are working in Canada. They are doing everything. Even criminals, they are settling in Canada using the student's visa. And this and many others are the concerns that Canadians are calling out daily. So, Guys, tell me, what do you think is the issue here? Because for the past years, Canada has been allowing in more immigrants. And immigrants are using this opportunity as a loophole to enter Canada. And since they can't access any other visa, they see the student's visa is the easy one. They use that. And unfortunately, Canada is opening the doors. And when Canadians talk about it, well, you will see the government saying Canadians are racist. They just don't want these people in the country. But is it the right protocol to follow? Tell me what you think about this discussion, because it is very endless and we need to talk about it. And tell me what you think in the comments, and see you in the next.